Hello, and welcome to our final session in this event. Our planet, as you've realized, I'm sure, is at a really critical crossroads. We're simultaneously facing climate and biodiversity and pollution crises, and with tourism's destinations, host communities bearing the brunt of the impacts. In this session, global thought leaders will share their proactive blueprints and solutions for sustainable tourism, and we'll discuss how we can combat these challenges together. Up first, we have Kelly Bricker, who's Professor and Director of Havnane, Arizona State University Joint Tourism College. Take it away, please, Kelly.
Thank you, Anna. Certainly it's a pleasure to be here and to be a part of this event today. I'm going to try and share my screen. Maddie, I think, well, no, let's give that a go. Are we all set?
That looks great, Kelly.
Excellent. So as part of this wonderful group, the Tourism and Protected Areas Specialist Group, we have been doing some work during the time of COVID and trying to get an understanding of some of the needs of protected area managers. We have ideas, and certainly through these last few hours, we've learned even more about some of the needs happening at the protected area level. We decided as a group, the Biodiversity Working Group combined with the Capacity Building Group, to actually talk to, via survey, some of our protected area managers. So one of my goals today is to give a little bit of background on the results, but we don't have them all done yet, but we have a little bit to share. And then just to talk about the TAPAS Working Group and how you all might want to get involved. So brief over of our study and some of the resources we have here. To give a background, we received 231 responses on our survey, and we had 49 different countries represented, and really A to Z, Albania to Zambia. So we were pretty excited about that. We had a variety of protected area types represented in our survey, from government agencies to shared governance situations such as conservancies, as Judy discussed earlier today, private nature reserves, indigenous or local communities, and others that we will decode at a later time. We also really realized that the protected area managers that did respond were quite educated. And they had a variety of responsibilities that they took on. Some were evolving due to COVID, some were changing due to increased tourism from sort of biodiversity responsibilities to visitor management. So they were kind of in transition. And as we noted, about 33% attended one or more short training courses. Only 17% actually had on-the-job training on site. 17% attended online webinars. We hope to have some of them here today. 20% attended one or more extensive training courses, and 13% had different types of courses that we will decode at a later time. I think an important note here is what kind of trainings that they had that were relevant, and how relevant were they? Well, some said that they actually contributed to the technical and scientific understanding of their protected area. Some said they were only somewhat relevant, and some aspects were now important to them by default due to new emerging responsibilities. And some of the lessons shared between protected area managers have been some of the most valuable and instructive ideas that they were able to garner from perhaps webinars or on-site trainings. And they all felt sort of collectively that trainings were incredibly important, and they need to be ongoing with the various situations training, the various situations changing over time. So another little bit of analysis that we've done so far is to really look at what are some of the critical issues that they felt were most important, and really what kinds of access did they have to the information of these critical area issues. So I haven't pulled them all because we just simply don't have time, but I did pull kind of some interesting ideas. Distribution maps of major plant species. The majority felt that these were critically important, and the majority felt that they had relatively low access to this information. Similarly, with the distribution maps of major wildlife species, again, 64% felt that they were critically important, yet 54% felt like they had very low access to this type of information. And location of endangered wildlife species so that they could manage visitors around these areas. Again, 72% felt that this was critically important, yet 53% felt that they had very low access to this type of information. And locations of endangered plant species, a similar response. So what we're starting to learn is areas where there may be a dearth of information, and how the TAPAS group might, and others working in these areas, might develop strategies to help our protected area managers. So that leads me into who we are as a TAPAS group. We're an IUCN, we're part of the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas, and we're a specialist group, and we're all volunteers doing voluntary technical work. And what we do as a unit is really contribute to the knowledge base. So there are several resources that can be accessed, and we're sharing those locations in our information sheet that you'll be getting later, but several resources from understanding visitor use and visitor use management to understanding best cases of how to work with communities. So a variety of resources in this area. There's really a network of over 600 volunteers committed to this intersection between sustainable tourism and protected area management globally. We produce and disseminate this knowledge through some of our most recent work, and some of it goes through the IUCN, others come out in academic publications or webinar series such as this one that you're all participating in today. The target audience for much of this work has been really professionals working on this intersection between tourism and protected areas. And this includes administrators, managers, the whole list of planners and government agencies, non-governmental organizations, community groups, private land managers, private land owners, indigenous groups, just about everybody involved in that could be involved in this intersection. And building on two previous editions on the subject of tourism and the IUCN Best Practice Guidelines series, this visitor management use guideline work has provided guidance to key issues to really help managers achieve sustainable tourism in protected areas. And we see this as a changing, moving target, as you've heard in the presentation. So we hope to be updating this and really build this community going forward. So in the end, we help to build capacity through workshops and webinars such as these, and through MOOCs on topics that have been really significant to COVID-19 and protected area management and visitor impacts such as over-tourism. And of course, this webinar will be available to all to use and distribute widely as you see fit. And here are some of the ways that you can contact and connect with Tapas. And I just like to personally invite everyone to be a part of this amazing network. We are constantly learning and we're constantly looking at new ways to help you in the work that you do and to help all of us create a more sustainable world, as well as more sustainable tourism as a tool for conservation in protected areas. So back over to you, Anna. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelly, for sharing this really important research that you've done, and also for plugging the Tapas group. And yes, I hope lots of people take the opportunity to join. I'm afraid we've just learned that Jeremy Sampson will be unable to join us for this session. So instead, we'd like to move Natalie Kidd up the agenda to speak. Natalie is the Chief People and Purpose Officer at Intrepid Travel. Welcome, Natalie.
Great. Thank you very much, Anna. Great. Hopefully you can hear me and see my screen now.
Yes.
So as Anna said, I'm Natalie Kidd. I'm the Chief People and Purpose Officer at Intrepid Travel, which means I'm responsible for our global sustainability initiatives, which are the centerpiece of our brand and our strategy. There's something that we embed throughout our business and really keep front of mind in everything that we do. And I'm here today to, I guess, give you a business perspective on how we try and embed sustainable tourism, and not just within our own business, but take a position of leadership and advocacy within the industry to bring other businesses along with us. For those of you who might not be familiar with Intrepid, we were founded over 30 years ago with our head office in Melbourne, Australia, and are now proud to call ourselves the world's largest purpose-led adventure travel company. We are truly a global team with our own Intrepid staff and team members in more than 30 countries around the world. We operate our own tours because we have our own staff and our own tour leaders on the ground in many destinations. And of course, that's supplemented by our sales and marketing officers around the world. Prior to COVID-19 bringing the industry to an abrupt halt, at Intrepid, we operated over 2,500 itineraries across 130 countries on all 7 continents. And we call our style of product sustainable experience-rich travel. Our purpose as a business is to inspire, create, share, and lead the best travel experiences ever for both people and the planet. Our business absolutely relies on destinations and the communities within those destinations. So for us, looking after them is critical to the ongoing longevity and success of our business. And the thing that really unites our staff all around the world is being able to create positive change through the joy of travel. This is a mission that it attracts, retains, and absolutely engages our staff and our leaders, and indeed our customers as well. So we are a certified B Corp, and for Intrepid being a B Corporation, that means we are legally required through our business constitution to balance purpose and profit and take into account the needs of all stakeholders in our decision making. B Corp is the certification that we use as a way to show the world that we actually do what we say we do. But we also use it to hold us accountable and to challenge us to keep improving and to keep looking for new ways to engage our stakeholders and make sure we're doing the right thing by all of those stakeholders beyond just our shareholders. We don't want to be the best travel company in the world. We want to be the best travel company for the world. But the journey with purpose, which is what we call sustainability, it's not a new journey, and it's been going on indeed since the company was founded over 30 years ago. Our founders really wanted to ensure that we travelled responsibly and that we gave back to communities in our host destinations. Now, of course, things change and we learn over time. So indeed, there might have been things that we would have done in the past that we wouldn't do anymore, but it's an ongoing journey of learning and improving and in trying to make a positive impact wherever we go. So a few examples, I mean, we are really proud to often have been able to take the lead in adopting and advocating on important issues, from starting our own philanthropic foundation back in 2002, the Intrepid Foundation. Since then, we have raised over $11 million that we've been able to distribute to not-for-profits and social impacts around the world. And we started our climate journey back in 2006, becoming carbon neutral in 2010, and earlier this year becoming the first travel company to actually have approved science-based targets. And over the years, we've advocated on many issues, from animal welfare, child protection, Indigenous rights, and gender equality. But Intrepid Travel ultimately is a privately owned for-profit business. But unlike many businesses that I talk to, we don't see sustainability and purpose as a cost on the business. We firmly believe that doing good is good for business. And we've got financial results that demonstrate that. From 2016 to 2019, the 4 years prior to COVID, we invested more in purpose-led initiatives than ever before. At the same time, our results showed that we achieved record top line and bottom line growth. So we don't think investing in purpose or investing in sustainability is mutually exclusive with running a for-profit business. We actually feel that they really reinforce each other. And we absolutely know that what we do in this space drives the engagement of our team members, and engaged team members in turn resonate with our customers. Now, not every business can immediately replicate the resource that we invest into this space, but it's also about taking the first steps and continuing to drive incremental positive change and embedding it in everything that you do over time. But we also have the knowledge that doing good on our own is not going to solve many of the problems facing our world and our industry. So we absolutely embrace collaboration. And I think this is also a key outcome that we saw at COP26 very recently, that collaboration is key. As a business, we look at the issues that are facing our industry, we advocate for them and help bring other businesses along on the journey with us. A recent example that we've advocated on is something that very much crippled our whole industry. We looked at the impacts of COVID and what would it take for us to get back to business, and for all those communities around the world that have been negatively impacted by loss of their livelihoods. So we could see that the positive role of vaccinations was really enabling our source markets to start thinking that the time was right to go back to travel. However, we were also aware that in our destinations, many of them just did not have access to vaccinations, thus potentially putting them at risk if tourism restarted. So for many destinations, they were stuck. They really needed to restart tourism for that economic benefit that they were missing, but they didn't, still don't necessarily have that access to vaccines. So we started an advocacy campaign to call for vaccine equity. As a business ourselves, looking internally, we looked at operationally how we could make a difference, and have indeed tried to do a number of things in different countries as opportunities present themselves. One example was actually getting medical care and vaccinations to communities in Peru where our porters would come from, so that they had the opportunity to get vaccinated before they went back to work when the Inca Trail reopened. We also, through the Intrepid Foundation, partnered with UNICEF's Give the World a Shot campaign, raising money for COVAX and vaccine equity. And I'm pleased to say that in just the last couple of months, we're now very close to our target of $150,000 for this very important campaign. However, as terrible as COVID has been for our business, there is a far greater threat to our industry and the world, and of course that is climate change. Now, I was hoping that Jeremy was going to talk about some of the work that has been done recently, and we have partnered with a number of organisations on climate change and looking at what action is needed. Ourselves as a business, as I mentioned, we started back in 2006 talking about the future impacts. In 2010, we became carbon neutral, but we now know it's very clear that offsetting emissions on its own is not enough. We will certainly continue to do that, but we really need to be reducing our emissions. And so therefore, for us as a business, we committed to getting science-based targets, which were approved earlier this year. We have also really partnered, we signed up very early on to Tourism Declares a Climate Emergency, and we have worked very closely with them and with a number of other partner organisations through the world to bring the industry along on this journey, which has culminated in the Glasgow Declaration, which was signed last week at COP26, which is encouraging all organisations to come on board and commit to serious climate action over the next number of years. For us at Intrepid, we have a number of measures that we are taking. Every one of our offices around the world has its own carbon action plan, which identifies ways to reduce waste, ways to cut emissions. We're actively looking to transfer to renewable energy wherever possible, and we've recently achieved that in Turkey. Initially, there was the feeling that in some of the places we have offices, it just wouldn't be possible, but we're starting to challenge ourselves and prove that it is possible. On our trips, we're also looking at how we not only offset, but reduce our emissions, while also, of course, maintaining a positive customer enjoyment. A few examples, we're looking at all of our flights. Every flight that's under 90 minutes, we're looking for alternatives. Can we take the flights out and find another way of getting around? Our product development now has greenhouse gas emissions as one of the core considerations. So we're actively avoiding bringing in new products that have higher than necessary emissions. We're also putting a much larger focus on the types of products that are more cycling based or walking based, thus avoiding unnecessary transportation as well. During COVID, like many tour operators, we had to pivot to domestic and local travel. Now that international travel is reopening, we've decided it's really important to maintain that also as another way of protecting and taking action against emissions so that our customers have the opportunity to also travel closer to home, be that in North America, Australia, the UK or Europe. We're looking at giving them options so that they can reduce long distance flying on every holiday they take and incorporate more local travel into their travel planning. So these are just a few of the practical steps we're taking internally. However, beyond our own steps, we also really want to enable other businesses to come on this journey with us. And we do that by things like contributing to these global partnerships, such as Tourism Declares and now Glasgow Declaration. But we also look at how we can share our own learnings. In the past, we've released toolkits on things like animal welfare, child protection, and now we have released an open source guide for tour operators on how to set science-based targets and start looking at the carbon measurement. So it really is the story of everything we've done, and co-authored by a member of my team, Dr. Susanna Etty, who's our environmental specialist, but she also spends time talking it through and working with anybody who's interested to look at how it can apply to their businesses. So in this way, we combine our own actions with also helping other businesses. A key focus for us moving into 2022 will be looking at both the environmental and social of how we can support and help our supply chains move forward in a number of these different issues as well. So in closing, we really see that our role is combined internal and external. Internally, it's absolutely about identifying and taking actions, but externally, it's also about engaging and advocating within the industry, with our customers. We heard earlier about the impact that tourist behaviour has, and so we aim to, as much as we're taking our customers on a holiday, we're also educating them about the world and about different ways we can make a positive impact rather than a negative impact. I'm pleased to say as a business, I've really seen over the last number of years that we have managed to embed purpose absolutely across the business. And that's why I took you through our vision and our mission to show you that it is really at every level of the organisation. It is integrated in and inseparable from the way that we do business. But in addition to taking that action, it's very much about bringing people on the journey with us, be that our staff, our tour leaders, our customers, or even our competitors. We all need to really work together in order to make a positive change. So thank you for your time, and Anna, I'll head back and pass back to you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. It's really fascinating to learn more about Intrepid's comprehensive and also collaborative approach to sustainable tourism and the climate emergency. And I'd like to congratulate you for your really commendable efforts to encourage vaccination in the destinations where you work. Last and certainly not least, I'd really like to warmly welcome Dr. Susana Calderas Diaz. She's the co-director of the Institute of Applied Ecology at the Universidad San Francisco de Quito in Ecuador. Welcome, Susana.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, and hello, everybody. I am really glad to be here and to share some exciting news that we have to share with you tonight. I will be talking about a very interesting motion on tourism, on sustainable tourism, that we at the university, through the Institute of Applied Ecology, help move on and to present in the IUCN Congress in Marseille that was last September. This motion was prepared and worked through the TAPAS group that already Kelly and Anna have talked to you about. And the TAPAS group is part of the World Commission on Protected Areas of the IUCN. The presentation I will be showing you today has been also put together with Professor Yu-Fai Long from North Carolina State University in the US, and also Shane Fayers of the University of Florida. So we have put this together for you and to tell you about this motion. So for starting, this was called Motion 130, and the name of the motion is Strengthening Sustainable Tourism's Role in Biodiversity Conservation and Community Resilience. So as I was telling you before, this motion was initially prepared, and it basically started as a dream within the TAPAS group, and it was presented at the IUCN conference. Usually you have to present these motions at the IUCN Congress through a primary sponsor that we decided to collaborate as a primary sponsor in this very important motion. And also it was backup, and also a part of the motion were 16 other organizations that are part of the IUCN, that are members of the IUCN. So it was a very interesting motion that got the support from many other organizations around the world. So we have organizations from Africa, from Europe, from Galapagos, from other organizations that are globally based, for example, the Nature Conservancy, Wildlife Conservation Society, WWF, Conservation International. So it was a very interesting collaboration through many organizations to put this motion and to present it formally during the General Assembly of the IUCN Congress in France this year. So what made this motion to start, right, to begin? It was a general awareness, especially within and also an important and an interest within the TAPAS group to make this topic of tourism more visible within the IUCN and all the groups that are working in the IUCN, but also having to strengthen, to emphasize the idea of the role of tourism in biodiversity conservation, in protected areas, in all the sustainable livelihoods around the world, right? So through all these events that we have had this morning and this afternoon, we have been talking about how sustainable tourism, nature-based tourism has been very important for local communities and for protected areas. So it's making making more emphasis on the role of tourism. Also, we have tourism as a very important and crucial conservation tool, right? But we need more attention on it, more attention and more recognition by the global conservation community. Usually, in the past congresses of the IUCN, even though there are some topics related to tourism, it hasn't been shown or presented as a key theme in the global conservation discourse. So really, through this motion, what we wanted is to put more emphasis in tourism and all the important role that it's having in the local communities and protected areas. And also, as a background, in the previous World Conservation Conference in Hawaii in 2016, there was already a resolution 6.06 that was promoting, right, improving standards in ecotourism. However, it was we needed more attention. We need to have more impacts on practice, and that's why this motion on tourism started and was presented. Also, it was very important to mention that we have some important drivers, right, for moving on into this motion. Some of these have to be to the efforts in the last years to work on to develop and disseminate global best practices on tourism, visitor management, and sustainable tourism in protected areas. Well, Anna here, Kelly, you five have been working on all these important tools and documents for promoting best practices on tourism and sustainable tourism in protected areas. So there is all this movement, right, to make this important topic to be more discussed and to be implemented in practice. So also we had before COVID, before the pandemic, we had in some protected areas issues related to over-tourism. There were some signals that things were going out of hand, right? Especially in certain places. So these concerns were starting to be part of the discussion, and especially in protected areas in some World Heritage sites, and also was saying we need to discuss more about tourism, the future of tourism, how we are going to be managing this. But also COVID also present a lot of vulnerabilities about tourism. In the past talks, we have heard already all these impacts, how the local communities around protected areas have been dealing with these impacts of COVID-19 pandemic related to loss of revenues, all these impacts in the local economies and the community well-beings. And other impacts related to illegal poaching, illegal wildlife trade, things that happened because of the pandemic. Also, the control of monitoring was decreasing. So all of these make us think again about the importance of tourism, how we need to really include this as a very important topic in the conservation agenda. So that's why we presented this motion in the Congress. I just wanted to show you the voting results for the motion. It was a motion that actually was approved with a very high votes for both. We have in the IUCN 2 categories of organizations. Category A is governmental organizations, and category B and C are other private and NGOs, other type of organizations, right? So for both types of organization, the approval was very important, right? And the motion passed, and this was a very interesting and important news for all of us, because at the end, what we wanted is to work in a collaborative way for moving this topic as a higher level. So just to show you some, as a summary, the most important parts of the motion, what the motion is calling for. So in terms of the IUCN, in general, was to include formally this topic of sustainable tourism, right? And also to integrate it formally in the future congresses, right? Also, within IUCN, there are many different commissions. And the idea is that tourism is a transversal topic, right? So it is important to consider the creation of an intercommission within the commissions to discuss and also to focus on sustainable tourism. That is this topic that goes beyond just one commission. So that's another important call of the motion. Another thing we have within the TAPAS group, there is a specific also task force within the Commission of Protected Areas. There is a specific COVID task force, right? So the idea is to collaborate with the specialist groups and other task forces to promote actions, to strengthen actions to rescue, recovery, and rebuilding of local communities after all the pandemic that all of us passed through the last year and a half. So this includes thinking about equitable benefit sharing programs, and in protected areas mainly this involves tourism in many different ways. Nature-based tourism, tourism that is local-based, that is equitable share, so that these type of programs are very important to have more focus. Also to be thinking about emergency strategies, right, for both communities and protected areas, and also developing resources for these local nature-based tourism programs and recreational activities. So these are the main core ideas and the calls for the motion. And also we have specific calls for the IUCN members. So these IUCN members, as I was telling you before, are these organizations that are part of the IUCN. And the idea is that through the motion, we increase the support for the development of many different activities that are related to the motion of sustainable tourism, right? Is try to develop more diversified sustainable livelihood activities. We already have heard, and also we know that the communities that were impacted by tourism, one of the things that was the main conclusions of the main lessons learned is that needs to have diversified alternatives for not being so impacted to issues with tourism that we just had because of the pandemic. So also the development of skill training programs, trying to think about alternative markets, right, that create this resilience at the community level. Also, we would like the members also to help establish partnerships, right, enterprise-based collaborations of partnerships to help with this biodiversity monitoring and also other type of support across the tourism supply chain. And also we would like to members also to help establish more financial campaigns, endowment funds. We have been talking about all these type of solutions and alternatives, but to formally promote these as part of the member agenda. So we have some more operational schedule for the next terms, and we have also been thinking about how we are going to be moving forward with the motion. So there is a motion task force, and we have been trying to specify very clearly how we are going to be working in the short term, in the medium term, and also in the long term. So at the beginning, we are, now that the motion is approved, and all of us are very enthusiastic about that, is starting with announcing to start working together with all the sponsors of the motion and to confirm, right, commitments. I will tell you a little bit more about the commitments that we have been having as the sponsors of the motion. And also we want to try to have a very consistent way on how we report and we move and we show progress with the motion. We also want
Susanna, 1 minute, please.
Okay, sure. Then we want to, in the medium term, we want to create these interagency commissions, these other topics that I was telling you about. And also then in the long term is working more on strategic partnerships and funding also mechanisms that help move these ideas of these implementation actions in the real practice in the local communities and protected areas. So we are right now, all the sponsors of this motion right now, the main ideas that we have as commitments are training and capacity building, developing and supporting local nature-based tourism initiatives, having tourism multidisciplinary research and monitoring in the places where we are based, and also exchanging knowledge and experiences. We really want to work as a network and collaborate to move on with these ideas of the motion. And it goes beyond us. So the idea is also to have more people being engaged in these, more organizations, because for having impact with the motion, we need more long-term collaboration and networking. So that was it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Susanna. We really appreciate your sharing such a great overview of Motion 130 and its importance, and particularly thank you for your essential leadership of the submission as its primary sponsor. I think it's an important achievement and really look forward to collaborating with you, co-sponsors, and others who want to get involved. Now I'm going to hand over to Greg Miller, our co-host. He's kindly offered to share some of what Jeremy would have presented, and then he'll move us into the Q&A. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, hi everybody. Maddie was kind enough to share me what Jeremy had in the slide deck. I just looked at it, so I want to share a couple points since we have at CREST been working very closely with the Travel Foundation on this. Maddie, if you'd go to the next slide, please. One thing I want to underscore is that CREST is one of the 6 co-founders together with the Travel Foundation and 4 other nonprofits in the creation of the Future of Tourism Coalition. And one of the things that we have been striving since early 2020 is to ensure that tourism is a catalyst for positive change, looking both global and local, looking at both vulnerable systems and valued, and looking at both public and private. Next slide. I won't take too long here. I think many of you have seen this before. Those are the 6 organizations that we have formed the Future of Tourism Coalition. We have established our 13 guiding principles, where we have today about 685 signatories to these guiding principles. I'm sure several are on here, and if you want more information, I think Maddie just put the Future of Tourism website in the chat. What I believe Jeremy would want to share in this is a couple of things. One is that climate change is one of our guiding principles. The other is the number one in terms of seeing the whole picture. And I think this is particularly important for us in this conversation of looking at a more holistic approach to sustainability and protected area management, putting the community and destination at the center of the future of tourism, and to ensure that we are developing the kind of tools and applications and advocacy that we need. Maddie, if you'd go to the next slide, please. Next one. I don't know what he wanted on this. I think everyone knows that at the recent COP26, there was a major declaration called the Glasgow Declaration. There were 300 original signatories on this. Launch Partners, Center for Responsible Travel, of which I'm the executive director, we were one of those. The Travel Foundation, working with the UN and some other agencies, really spearheaded this. And I think Natalie mentioned before, tourism declares a climate emergency. So many of us have declared emergencies and are developing climate action plans. I want to point out that I expect that Jeremy would have announced this, that Tourism Declares a Climate Emergency has just been incorporated into the structure of the Travel Foundation. So the declarations that we all made through Tourism Declares, we will be rolling into the at a higher level with the Glasgow Declaration for Climate Action in Tourism. Maddie, if you would kindly go to the next slide. I think he's got, yeah, and bring those all up. What has been developed and what was very powerful and accepted at the COP26, and Natalie Kidd made note of that Intrepid was there, and I believe John Thornton actually did a signing in Glasgow on that. I think I saw that. But we've identified 5 pathways in the Glasgow Declaration that are going to be very important. Many people in the presentations this morning and this morning from a Western Hemisphere time, and then the second event here today, I've mentioned these, but there are 5 pathways: to measure, and we've heard that metrics so many times; to genuinely decarbonize; to regenerate, and a couple of speakers just in the last 2 sessions have mentioned that; collaborate, not compete; and then to identify key financing mechanisms. Maddie, I don't think he has another slide in here. Let me just, if you just see whether, if you could go to the next one. No, so you can stop sharing. So I just wanted to underscore that quickly, and we can follow up on that. And you can go to the Future of Tourism website and find that, or go to the Glasgow Declaration as well. But I wanted to share that. Now, we have a few minutes for questions. I really want to thank Kelly, Natalie, and Susanna for their insights on sustainable tourism blueprints and solutions. And we have a few questions here that have been brought up from the Q&A, and I have one. I'm gonna take editorial license, and Natalie, I have a question for you, and I'm gonna put you on the spot a bit. And I know you're quite up to the task at Intrepid. Intrepid is clearly an industry leader, no question about that, and we thank you for that tourism sustainability leadership. And very recently, Intrepid just announced a big growth offering of new tours in the United States. Mm-hmm. And congratulations on that, and thank you for that. But what I want to underscore is, if everyone goes back to the map that Natalie had put up, and this is a really interesting growth for Intrepid, since you've been known for much more of more in the developing world. Now, clearly you've had a portfolio in the U.S. What my question is, and I'm sure many people will think about this, is we really need help in the United States when it comes to sustainable tourism and really taking a more holistic approach here. How do you think Intrepid, having a bigger market share in the United States and given the leadership position, how can you lead by example, influence the tourism industry, which is a very important destination for international travelers, as well as, of course, an extraordinary domestic tourism, and specifically around two areas. How can Intrepid influence the importance of getting the tourism sector in the United States to decarbonize, genuinely commit to that, and to commit to science-based targets?
Great question. I think in the US, it's similar to what we're trying to do on a global basis. And it's not the first time we've been operating tours in the States. We had a probably bigger footprint in the States a few years ago, and then we, for various business reasons, haven't been quite as active there. But I think with COVID, obviously as a business and trying to look for the business sustainability, we had to pivot to more domestic. And so we looked at our major source markets around the world, and we can probably categorize them into three: North America, UK, Europe, and Australia Pacific. So part of it was looking initially from a business perspective of how do we keep something going during this time where we've lost all revenue. However, in everything we do, as I stated, we do try and put this sustainability or purpose-led lens to it. And we actually feel that getting more people traveling locally, and I think COVID gave us that opportunity of people having to look in their own backyards, it is helpful in terms of when people go on holiday, not every holiday is a long distance holiday with the associated emissions. So when we realised a few months ago, international tourism is back on, we made the very conscious decision that we still wanted to progress with having a greater local travel offering for those larger source markets. So how do we start making an impact? And I think the more connected we are, through all the different sustainable organisations out there, it really is about collaborating, making contacts, sharing what we know. And I think for businesses, showing them that this is not a cost to the business that they can't afford. It's actually a competitive advantage. I think educating not just the industry and other businesses, but helping to educate the consumer and the customer. We firmly believe that customers are becoming better educated, are wanting to make good choices with who they're spending their money with. And I don't think it can be entirely consumer-led. I think businesses need to kind of push in this direction, but I think that combination between engaging consumers, educating consumers in how they can make good choices, and then probably showing the industry some leadership and engaging collaboratively. And, you know, you made the point in Jeremy's presentation about it's collaboration, not competition anymore when it comes down to this. But I think the thing we can do as a business is show other businesses that actually this can be good for your business and for your bottom line, as well as being putting in good practices. So they're not exclusive, they're really supportive of each other. So, you know, I think we really look forward to, we're growing our team in North America, we're growing our links in North America, and hopefully through a combination of those things, we can help.
Thanks, Natalie. Kelly and Suzanne, I don't know whether you have any other insight or perspective on that you'd like to share before I shift to another question that will be for you all.
I was just going to add that we are seeing, even at the state level, state tourism organizations move from destination marketing to destination management, and in the United States. And so some really good examples of taking a step back and seeing how to best prepare visitors to these national parks and protected areas. I know Utah's taking a lead on that. And also looking at ways to inform local tourists and how can they better visit our public lands and our protected areas. So I see we're seeing a shift in the US, at least here in the West, in that direction, which is quite positive.
Terrific. Suzanne, I don't know whether you had anything you wanted to add. I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to.
Just emphasizing something that Natalie already said. I think the COVID, the pandemic also give us the opportunity to see more local, right? More locally, and also to put value on our protected areas and visiting the protected areas. And for example, in Ecuador, we saw that. So people had a lot of time going to the national parks when they were open again. After a few months they were closed, but also was putting the value on that and trying to make an awareness and a strong awareness of what is having this local-based tourism and this opportunity that you just have near you. So, and that I think made a big shift in general in the minds of as residents being tourists near your place, right? So I think that was a very interesting thing that happened.
Great, thanks, Suzanne. A question for all of you. National parks, both in the US and globally, how do you feel, this is a global question, how are they actually addressing and incorporating climate change into their management plans? Are there any particular winners or leaders that you're seeing in this? Maybe Kelly, I'll direct this to you first, and Susanna, and come back to Natalie.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from the national park perspective what they see themselves doing, but we are seeing greater collaboration between concessioners and park service or park land managers, and working together on sustainability goals and waste reduction and things of that nature. So I do see sort of a shift in how maybe the Park Service has viewed concessioners in the past. We recently did a study up in adjacent to Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park, and there seems to be more cooperation and partnership building around these topics of sustainability, and assuming that transportation issues is one of those greater issues with respect to climate.
And I want to point out to everybody that the chat is kind of lighting up right now with a number of examples, and as Anna had mentioned before, and we have throughout both sessions, both events, that we will be collecting all of this content and providing you these as resources. I think we have time for maybe one more really quick question. And some governments, this is from one of our different participants, some governments, examples, France, Spain, and Italy, are competing to increase their number of visitors. How will they accept kind of retracting or reducing those in order to reach COP26 objectives? Don't know whether anyone would like to tackle that.
Who wants
Doesn't
to
have
jump
to
in?
be those countries. Natalie,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I think it is a tricky one, but I think, for me, it comes back to this piece of collaboration. And I think collaborating between governments, business, and then whether it's, the not-for-profits or academia, kind of balancing out, governments need to support the economic livelihood of their country. You can understand why they need to do that. But I think it's also starting to take a longer term view that just pushing for bigger numbers and focusing on the bottom line for today and the income to a country and a destination for today is actually selling out our future. But I think we really need to see that collaboration between government and private sector. And I think private sector has a big role to play in working with government. And we certainly lobby governments where we've got a more major footprint. And we are constantly lobbying governments and trying to have engagement with them. And I think that's key.
That's a great point.
Can-
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Can I
I
just
just realized
add
I'm getting the hook.
Well, I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just can't help but mention, I was just at a conference and we heard from a lot of public land managers, protected area managers. And in our country, the word climate couldn't even be mentioned in interpretive programs up until the last administration change. So we do have to look at the politics of place and the impact on,
No question.
our protected area managers, especially here. So just needed to throw that out there.
Absolutely. Well, I wish we had more time, and that's even after this is our 6th hour in 2 sessions today, and well, carried over into the next morning in Asia and Africa. But I want to thank everyone. We're going to officially close the crisis response and recovery, nature-based tourism, biodiversity, and livelihoods. On behalf of IUCN Tapas, World Wildlife Fund, Arizona State University, and the Center for Responsible Travel, we really do appreciate everyone's attention and commitment to all of our wonderful speakers. And I have to make a just very heartfelt and hearty shout out to both Alex and Maddie behind the scenes that have just been seamless in putting together. It's really hard across literally every time zone and what have you, and they've just done an outstanding job. So I'd like to thank on behalf of all my colleagues, everyone who has participated, prompting questions, engaging with us today. You all will receive an email which will have follow-up materials and resources from the sessions today. All of this was also recorded, and that content will be available. We hope that this event inspired you and has provided you with some new tools and perspectives, as well as hopefully some new contacts and colleagues that you'll work towards in the future, so that we can work towards change for the better and to commit to a much more holistic approach to sustainable tourism. So on behalf of all of us here in this community, thank you. We wish you well. Stay safe and healthy. And thank you so much for all the work that you do, public, private sector, nonprofit, to make this a better world. Together, we will be able to, and I'll use the comment that Natalie had just shared in terms of just how important collaboration is for us to move together, whether it's as researchers, practitioners, decision makers, et cetera. So thank you, and have a good day, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. So we'll close things now. And on behalf of Anna Spenceley and myself as our final, and Kelly, Bricker and Jim Sano. We're the band of merry men and women who put our heads together on this. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Good day. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.